Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, giving you even more specialized support than ever before. Like access to the trade desk, our team of passionate traders ready to tackle anything from the most complex trading questions to a simple strategy gut check. Need assistance? No problem. Get 24/7 professional answers and live help, and access support by phone, email, and in-platform chat. That's how Schwab is here for you, to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350-plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Oh, yes, my friends. I watched a little bit of that press conference yesterday that Tulsi Gabbard of DNI and Karoline Leavitt, of course, the White House spokesperson, had with the media yesterday. That, my friends, was quite the sight. I've got some sound bites from that press conference. Some fireworks ensued. Listen, we are getting close. You know, when people say there is no deep state, I've had people on social media say things like, we can't take you seriously when you use the phrase deep state. Well, why not? What do you want me to call it? The bureaucratic state? The professional bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. who have told us, who, by the way, I've got a clip here. Maybe I'll play it. I got a bunch of clips. I wasn't necessarily planning on playing this one, but going back to 2016 or 17, after Trump had won the election the first time, after they were telling us it was Russian collusion, Russia, they stole it. They tricked Hillary voters into voting for Trump because they had some really effective memes on Facebook and Twitter and even on Pokemon Go. It is utterly preposterous. I have been saying this for 10 years. Not quite. I guess it would be, maybe 8 years. 8 or maybe close to 9 now. 8 or 9 years. Been talking about how ridiculous. None of this ever made the slightest bit of sense. Listen, people have stopped thinking for themselves. It just never made sense. They have gotten nearly a decade of, the outcomes that they wanted. They have weaponized this for 10 years, and the chickens are finally coming home to roost. I don't know what else to say about this, my friends. We'll talk about that. I've got some sound bites. But I started to say Harry Reid, Dirty Harry, as Rush used to call him. He's on a clip here back in 2016 or 17 saying that the CIA, the intelligence community, should give Trump, as he's, I don't know if it was during the transition period or in his term at the beginning of being president in 2017, but he was actually calling for the intelligence community to give Trump fake intelligence reports. I mean, we have gone through this. I've got a montage of the things people were saying all these years ago, which I can play, but I want to talk about this because this is why I have a great appreciation for you in this audience because it's funny. The media will say that you parrot the people that you listen to, that we get on the microphone and you all just fall into line and take the orders and just, parrot what we tell you. That's not it at all. You're a very informed group of people. You're a very astute group of people. The vast majority of you, there's some stragglers in here, I assume. But you know what you're paying attention. You're thinking for yourself. You're listening even to viewpoints with which you don't necessarily agree with. Maybe some you don't understand because they don't make a lick of sense. But none of this has ever made a lick of sense. And if we had more people in this country who had brains and the ability to think this through, this never would have gotten 1 inch off the ground. Anyway, here we are talking about it 10 years later, and it's quite remarkable to see this come full circle. And for Obama, to be referred to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation, that is humongous news. The media is acting like this is all fabricated, made up, and all that. But, folks, this is precisely, again, as we talked about yesterday, not for vengeance, not to get even, not to go after political opponents, but for justice. This can never, ever, ever be allowed to happen again in this country. It's got to be stopped as best we can. I know it's like nailing Jell-O to the wall, but that's what needs to happen here, my friends. Friends, let me ask you something before we get started. Would you rather take 2 Salty soft gels a day or spend hours in your doctor's office talking about your cholesterol? I know what I would choose. You know that I like my doctor most of the time anyway. He's all right. But as much as I like that, I would rather be able to manage these things naturally on my own without medications and frequent visits to the doctor. That's not to say those things are never necessary. Please don't construe it to mean that. I'm just saying, as a good first step, isn't it better to do something like take a natural supplement that's not a drug, that doesn't involve countless visits and hours in doctor's offices and things like that? Take care of it proactively, my friends. And I'm telling you, the younger you are to start thinking like this, not to be paranoid, not to be someone who is a bit of a hypochondriac. No, to be proactive in taking care of your heart's health. Salty is a great product for that. I take it. It's all natural, clinically proven. Science has spoken on this. It's a dietary supplement that can lower cholesterol. It has done that for lots of people, and it may be able to do the same for you. Check it out at Salty.com, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd is going to get you 50% off your first order and free shipping to boot. The only thing you have to lose, my friends, are those high cholesterol numbers. Salty.com, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd. All right, let's start here. Let's start here by playing some sound bites here. Playing some sound bites, and the way that they're saved onto here is a little bit confusing on my computer. Okay, so before I get to the fireworks of this press conference, let's start by laying a bit of the groundwork for how we got here. Now, you know, we've talked about this. We talked about this even yesterday, right? We talked about this, how we got here. We talked about Russian collusion delusion. I talked about it in today's Todd Talk. This never made any sense. It doesn't make any sense for someone to make as the final step of their conspiracy an ad campaign. That never made any sense, and that's precisely what they told us happened. Again, without going into it, I like saying it because I've repeated this for nearly a decade now. I like saying it. It just rolls off the tongue. I've said it so much, but they want us to believe that Trump calls up Putin, meets him at the Kremlin. Of course, it's smoke-filled cigar smoke, all that sort of thing. They pop open a bottle of vodka, and of course, we all know Trump drinks, even though he claims he doesn't. They met to talk about how they could steal the election from Hillary, who was the rightful owner of the election. She was just waiting to be coronated as King of the United States. It was a mere formality. The odds of her winning on Election Day 2016 were somewhere in the 90-some percentile range. They were cocky. They were arrogant. They had mocked Trump, belittled Trump, made fun of Build That Wall, made fun of all this stuff. made fun of all this stuff for a long time, and then the numbers started coming in, and it was quite a different story. But it was supposed to be Hillary's. And so they wanted us to believe that the reason it turned out the way that it did was not that Trump connected with voters in ways that other politicians didn't. It wasn't that Trump connected with voters that the Democrat Party had long since neglected and forgotten. The Union Democrat types, the Blue Dog Democrat types, the people who hadn't voted in a long time types, the people who are not radically insane leftists. They just look for the person that seems to make the most sense. The people who were voting for someone who was outside of the establishment, that was a huge part of this as well. Someone that they actually believed might do the things he said he was going to do when he was elected into office. And so they voted for Trump. But they wanted you, they the media, they the Democrat Party, they the talking heads, want you to believe that the reason people voted for Trump and not Hillary was because they were tricked. They were tricked by a bunch of Russian social media interns. I like to throw the word intern in there to give it even a little bit more of a flavor of silliness. But this is what we were told. A bunch of Russian social media marketers had to help Trump through Putin, through that relationship, and they created a bunch of memes, a bunch of remarkably effective memes that allowed someone to be tricked into voting for Trump when they should have voted for Hillary. Now, I don't know why the media knows who should vote for which candidate based upon whatever, their race, gender, ethnicity, but this is how the media thinks. This is how the left thinks. And so that's the narrative. That's the story. The final step of the Russian collusion scandal, the conspiracy as they would call it, would be an advertising campaign. By the way, side note, that marketing team that Putin put together would be amongst the most effective marketers in the history of the world. And to my knowledge, they didn't get a single order following that remarkable outcome in 2016's election. So that was the narrative. It never made any sense. In today's Todd Talk, I said this was a fairy tale narrative, handmade, made to order for the make-believe adults in this country. That never made any sense. It never did. It should have been dismissed just based upon what they tell us happened. We should not have, for one moment, have taken this seriously. Now, to say that a foreign country was trying to influence the outcome of the election or influence politics in this country in general, that, of course, is a given. We've done that in foreign countries. This is something that's well documented. In fact, James Carville's out there. He's proud of it. He thinks that he's won elections for people in Israel and so forth for multiple times. Anyway, but those are not the same things, right? They're not the same things to say that a country stole the election, colluded with Trump to steal it, versus a country just trying to maybe sow chaos and discord, which really is what's been happening in this country for some time now. And it's not just pushed upon us by the people outside of this country. It's actually pushed upon us by the people inside this country. It's thrust upon us by the political parties. It's thrust upon us by the media. Look at the amount of hatred. I mean, you go back 10 years, people were upset. People were screaming at the universe, universe, why did you let Trump win the election? Silly, ridiculous stuff like that. Virtue signaling was just coming into focus here as being a real thing that people would do, and they would show us how virtuous they are by showing us how much they hated Trump or were bothered by him walking into the Oval Office. That's what all this was about, and it all can be traced back to this moment, this scandal, this Russian collusion scandal. And so someone's put this together. I don't know who it was. I did not do it. I found it on TikTok, believe it or not. I do find some sound bites on TikTok. This is America.first1 is the Twitter account. I think this is in the stack of stuff today if you want to watch it. This is a couple minutes long, but I want you to listen to what the so-called experts were saying. The experts were saying back in 2017, Trump had just come into office. They're trying to make sense of this. Remember, it took them a little bit of time. They had to cry and scream at the universe, and they lived in denial for a little bit. It's not just a river in Egypt. It's the state of mind that the left was in the days following the election. They were upset, in denial, shocked. Finally, they smacked themselves in the faces and said, get it together. We are a group of propagandists. Let's put together a story and a narrative that helps us stop this guy in his tracks. And that's what they did. And so early 2017, they start peddling this stuff. Remember, we went through the whole scandal earlier this week, I guess, when the information shows that the intelligence community, after saying that there was no interference, no collusion from Russia, none of that stuff was going on. They had a meeting. Obama called it maybe in December, about a month after the election, and suddenly the entire narrative changed. And by the time Trump took office, this stuff was full-blown. All the conversations out there in the media were, Trump stole the election with the help of the social media marketers in Russia. That's what we were told. Now, they didn't say it like that. They tried to make it sound much more sophisticated. They would cite 17 intelligence communities to make us go, oh, wow, right? But that's actually a fallacy, a logical fallacy. That's an appeal to authority. Who cares what the 17 agencies are saying? Is what they're saying something that is sound and makes good sense? And it turns out, of course, it didn't. It absolutely didn't. So I want you to listen to what they were saying. And remember this, that we've always known, listen, we've known that they were peddling this lie from the beginning. There's two groups. There's two groups of people. There are the people who were peddling this intentionally and who were willingly trying to overthrow a duly elected government in this country. They were willing participants in this, telling us things. Oh, this was put together by Media Research Council. I see their logo in the corner. But they were willingly trying to undermine an incoming presidency. Don't try to tell me that the only time that there was tension between an outgoing administration and an incoming administration was in 2024. Because the outgoing administration in 2017, Obama, we now know did everything it could to prevent the incoming administration from doing the things that they were elected to do. And so they knew that then. They know it, of course, now. We know it now for those of us who pay attention. But there was also a group that was naive and gullible that bought this stuff at the beginning, who never understood it. But since men in suits were saying it in front of television cameras, they took it seriously. Since people that they could say were at intelligence agencies said these things, they believed it to be the truth. Even though they never understood it, they couldn't explain what happened. None of that. They didn't think it through. I tried to explain it. I tried to tell them, you've heard me say this hundreds of times, that the whole story about Trump partnering with Putin, I tried to explain it that way to show how ridiculous and absurd this entire notion was from the very beginning. And by the way, if you were with me during all this time, we knew this from the very beginning. We haven't been shocked along this process. We've not been caught off guard. We knew that we were in the area of where the truth was with what we believed, because the other stuff made no sense. Some people are truly shocked so much, in fact, that they won't even listen to the things being said today by Tulsi Gabbard. In fact, CNN's out there saying they don't even know if they should play the words. It's so dangerous to listen to what she's saying. I mean, it's remarkable the degrees to which, A, they are willing to go, and B, that some of the viewers of these stupid networks are willing to go alongside with these clowns to prevent the truth from coming out. So I'm going to play this in just a moment, my friends, but I want to stop here and remind you that every dollar that you spend, every dollar that I spend is a vote for the kind of America that we want to live in. That's why we launched Freedom Marketplace. It is a free directory for you, free directory for the user to find businesses that align with your conservative principles and values. These businesses have made a promise. No support for leftist candidates, no support for leftist causes. They sign a pledge. If they break the pledge, they're kicked out of the directory. So we're trying to give you a place that you can find companies that are pushing in the same direction that you're pushing. So if you're tired of funding that woke agenda, visit freedommarketplace.net, freedommarketplace.net. It's free, it's easy, and it's something that you can do to help fight the woke business that is fueling some of these crazy leftist viewpoints and ideologies. So check it out today. It's totally free. freedommarketplace.net. All right, let's play. With no further ado, let's play the ridiculous things that were being said, intentionally misleading things that were being said by men in ties, leftists in ties on media outlets back in 2017. They knew that this was untrue then, and they're trying to prevent the entire system of deception from falling down in the wake of this. But this is what they were saying then, unbelievable though it may be. Here you go, enjoy.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy. Votes were definitely affected. Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election. No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
doubt.
Yes, Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election. Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Let's be clear, Russia hacked the election. Definitively.
CNN.
Russia
Definitively.
hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
Election-related cyber hacking.
Cyber hacking of U.S. elections.
Cyber hacking of the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
The CIA, the FBI, NSA,
All of these intelligence organizations,
17 intelligence agencies
all conclude that Russia hacked the election.
If we find out that Donald Trump just theoretically was colluding with Russia while they were hacking the election, that is completely impeachable.
this dossier alleged a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian effort to hack the election.
The director of national intelligence, the head of the National Security Agency, the head of the FBI, all of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election.
The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, I mean, they've all said this. So to believe that that's wrong, you have to believe they're all involved in an elaborate conspiracy to get Donald Trump, which seems a little far-fetched.
That seems far-fetched, huh? By the way, did you notice Jake Tapper, who suddenly found an interest in Joe Biden's mental capacity to be president after, about 6 months after that election was already done and over with, suddenly wrote a book, wants to profit on the thing that he was deceiving us about in 2020. He was also on the wrong side of it in 2016. These folks are intentionally deceptive. I've got to take a break, but that's the soundbite. That's the montage. Media Research Center, I think, is who put that together. Got to take a timeout, my friends. Quick timeout. Back in just a minute. You know, my question is, how long, if you listen to these clowns that I just played a montage from, how long are you going to listen to them before you begin to realize everything that they've told you for the past, at least, now we're at 10 years. All the big stories, they were completely on the wrong side of. Every one. And then I go back to me, and I can just speak about me. I'm a little old talk show host, podcaster, don't have 200 staffers. Oz and I hold down the fort here pretty well on our own. We've got some other support, but I mean, this is not, we don't have a massive team of people. I come on here and I talk with you about what I think about what's happening in the news, what's happening in stories around the world today, in this country today, in politics, the intersection of culture, politics, and faith. That's where we spend our time. And if you look at the success rate, the rate of being correct, and sometimes I like to have a little fun with it, and I go back and forth because candidly, it's not in my personality. I am not someone, I'll teasingly, jokingly say things like, well, we were right again. So I have a little fun with it. But I don't genuinely, that's off-putting for people to behave like that. But just as a matter of fact, I've got nearly 10 years of documented evidence on our website in the form of this show that you could go back and listen to. We have outperformed, dramatically so, the people at CNN as far as the accuracy of what we've said is really going on. The people at NBC, the people at MSNBC, the people at the New York Times, Stephen Colbert and his 200 staff, what are they doing? I mean, it begs the question, what in the world are 200 people doing at Stephen Colbert's show? It's not funny. I mean, they maybe need to find new people to write the jokes. How many people do you need to turn on the lights? How many people do you need to schedule the guests? You start to think that maybe, just maybe, those people are involved in helping to come up with ways to tell the story, advance the narrative of deception. I got none of that here. You got me, my brain, the things going on, my interpretation. Every once in a while I'll be wrong, ever so rarely. Couldn't even tell you the last time that it was. But it's happened. But I'll tell you this, I don't miss it like they do. My heavens. Miss it majorly. Majorly. The most critically important issues, not only are they wrong, they couldn't be more wrong. I don't know how to communicate this to you, my friends. When they criticize you, where you get your information, if they know you listen to talk radio or conservative podcasts like this or whatever, and they use that as an insult, just remember that you were listening to things that were much more aligned with truth and reality than what these people were listening to who tuned into CNN, who tuned into CBS, NBC, MSNBC, read the New York Times, the Washington Post, all that stuff. They are clueless. We went through Russian collusion delusion. We went through impeachment 1. We went through the Steele dossier, the spying on Trump's campaign. We went through COVID. You mean to tell me that we were more wrong on COVID than the knuckleheads in the mainstream media? Give me a break. We have been exonerated in virtually every way. And who were the ones being censored along the way? I had, at last count, I stopped posting them to YouTube because of this. I had 13 videos. 13 videos. We went through January 6th. Who was right on January 6th? I mean, we could go on and on. Who was right about Biden's mental capacity, his ability to be president? Who was right about the reasons that they chose Biden? Who was right about the reasons that they chose Kamala? Right? This is unbelievable. If you take the big issues over the past 10 years, I don't know how many there were. I mean, we're undefeated against the media. If there were 2 big issues a year, maybe there weren't, I'm just saying, we're 20-0. We are 20-0, and we're mopping the floor with these losers, these clowns, these professional sophists. This is intentional. They don't want you to know the truth. They want you to vote a certain way. That's what they want. They are unbelievable. If you had these folks working with you at your business, you would fire them. If these people were volunteers in your kids' schools, you would demand that they be not allowed in the building. If these people were running your youth football or soccer leagues, you would say in no universe should they be on a board making decisions. These people are the antithesis of logic and reason and good sense. They are just living in abject darkness, and they are coming up with ways each and every day to try to deceive good people in this country. That's what they do. It's who they are. I hope they turn from it, but they are inside the belly of the beast. They are living in just total darkness and deceit, and they try to use that to advance their morally bankrupt worldview and ideology, and now political party. So, with that being said, a little bit of a break here. I need to take a little bit of a time out as I shift to what I still want to talk about this, but I want to play some sound bites from what happened at that press conference yesterday. Before I do that, though, my friends, think about this. Your investments are like seeds that you plant. They grow, they multiply, but are they bearing the kind of fruit that you want? At 48 Financial, they believe your money should reflect your values. They specialize in wealth management and, listen to this, biblically responsible investing. They screen out companies that don't align with your faith, and it's all part of their purpose-centered financial planning. Helps you to live a life of meaning and purpose, where everything that you're doing is in alignment as much as possible this side of heaven, in alignment with what you believe to be good and true, and the values reflected in Scripture. So do you want to see if your investments are in alignment with your values today? All you have to do, it's easy to do, I've done this, you can do it as well. All you have to do is go to 48financial.com/Todd. That's 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial. They are here to worry about your money so that you don't have to, my friends. Take that assessment and find out. Find out where your current investments align or don't align with your values. All right, so I mentioned I wanted to play sound bites from what happened at this press conference. I'm going to get as much of this in as possible. This is good old Caitlin Collins. Caitlin Collins, CNN. I can't think of someone who is more intentionally deceptive, in my opinion, than Caitlin Collins. So she's at this press conference yesterday. Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, Karoline Leavitt, spokesperson for the White House. They made some announcements about criminal referral, what happened in this whole Russian hoax and all this. And so Caitlin Collins is asking questions of these two ladies. I want you to listen to this exchange.
Just on this, Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Okay, I'm going to pause that. That's as loud as I could get her volume. Let's see. I'll have to adjust this here for Tulsi Gabbard and Karoline Leavitt. But this is their response.
Well, first, I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Karoline speak to Secretary Rubio.
Buckle up here.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign.
Okay, pausing there because I'm up against the time. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. My friends, sit tight. You're listening to Conservative Not Bitter Talk. I am your host, the one and only benevolent dictator here behind the microphone. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Time flies when you're having fun. Final segment of today's program. Going to play the rest of this soundbite. Karoline Leavitt, Tulsi Gabbard pushing back on Caitlin Collins, which is remarkable to really think about. It's remarkable to think about. The media who's a part of this is now, again, what are they supposed to do? They're trying to hold this together. They're trying to save face. They're trying to keep people from seeing what actually unfolded here and candidly see their role in all of this. What else are they supposed to do? So Caitlin Collins is ironically the one who, at least her network, they're the ones who are fueling this problem, not the White House. Now, there are some people who say, well, yes, they are, Todd. This is just political retribution. No. I suppose theoretically it could be, but this is not the political retribution. This is trying to fix a serious problem where we had allegedly an administration that was leaving office that did everything in its power to prevent the incoming administration from being able to fulfill its political mandate, what it was elected to do. That is the antithesis, my friends, of democracy. So, that being said, I want to take a real quick pause here. And I want to say to you that there is nothing, very little anyway, that's more important than a good night's sleep. It's where we recharge to fight the battles of the day, my friends. Whether that's raising your families, whether that's working hard, whether that's just standing up for what's right in this great country. That's why I love MyPillow. They've got everything you need. They've got their patented pillows. They've got luxurious towels, unbelievably comfortable slippers. Oz will attest to that. And let's not forget, these products are made right here in the good old U.S. of A. You're not just buying comfort, which you are, my friends. You're also supporting American jobs and American values. You're also helping with the America First approach. That's a win-win, my friends. Here's the deal. Go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code Todd. You'll get big savings on products there. Do not wait, whether it's for your sleep, your mornings, or just a little bit of extra comfort. MyPillow has you covered. MyPillow.com, promo code Todd is how you get those special deals. All right, let's go back. I've got about 45 seconds of Karoline Leavitt, Caitlin Collins going at it over this issue of Russian collusion and the difference between Russia meddling and trying to sow discord and disharmony in a country versus colluding with the president or the nominee to be president, the Republican nominee Trump, to steal the election. There's a big difference there, as Karoline Leavitt points out, and here is the rest of that exchange. Again, I've got the volume turned up here. Well, let's see. I can turn it up a little bit more there on screen. Let's see if that helps a little bit. It was a little bit low. So that being said, Karoline Leavitt picks up where we left off last segment.
As for your second question, Caitlin, I think who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president.
So the second question was, effectively, by Caitlin Collins, hey, Tulsi, are you just saying these things now to try to win favor back with the president? Karoline Leavitt did not appreciate that. She said, look, The only people saying stuff like that are the clowns and knuckleheads in this room. The same people, by the way, that furthered, she didn't say this, but she could have or should have, the same people, by the way, that allowed this stupid, ridiculous, nonsensical narrative of Russian collusion to have a track record of impacting our political discourse in this country for nearly a decade now. The same people peddling that nonsense are the ones asking these questions. Who told you? Who suggested? Because Caitlin Collins, I believe, did, when she asked her question, insinuate that she had heard that from someone. Who did she hear it from? Who did you hear it from, Caitlin? Because the only people I hear saying stuff like that are people in this room, people who are calling themselves journalists, people who are pretending to be journalists, reporters, people who are acting like they're trying to give the American people information when what they are trying to do in reality is to get the American people to draw a certain conclusion. That is not journalism. That is political commentary. That is actually people who are sharing their thoughts and beliefs, trying to persuade people to a certain way of thinking. That's what I do. That's why I say I'm not a journalist, much to the dismay of many folks out there who say, yes, you are a journalist. No, I'm a person who has beliefs that I am trying to advocate for. A true journalist is someone who's trying to simply present information. I don't go to present the information. I go to get the information and to tell you why, what I think about it, and why that actually aligns with the viewpoint of the right way of looking at the news, in my estimation, why that aligns with my ideology and viewpoint. That's different from journalism, and there's no journalists in that room either, maybe a couple. Out of time, though, my friends. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening. SDG.